When I'm asked what I do for a living, the answer is pretty easy. I help my clients to grow and protect their income and assets. Now, your income determines your lifestyle. Your assets determine your legacy. What I'd like to do is just start with a supposition for fun. Let's say that you are going to quit working the rest of your life. You're going to go out into the wilderness. You're going to find your favorite lakes all over the country, and you're going to look for a black swan. Now, chances are you're not going to find it. The reason being is that they're very, very rare. They exist, but it would be hard to find one. The best-selling author and mathematician Nassim Taleb wrote a book called The Black Swan, and he used this metaphor as describing what unforeseen and surprise financial events would be like. And so he determined that many events that affect our lives in a catastrophic way are black swan events. One of those such events was October 20th, 1987. That was what's referred to as Black Monday. Now, it happened to be our youngest son's 7th birthday. It wasn't a black swan event because of that. It was a black swan event because of that day, the stock market fell 25%. Now, the few months that followed that day, there was a significant amount of applications for employment that were from 60-year-olds and older. Why? Simply because pensions, 401ks, IRAs, and personal savings vanished. Assets that were intended to provide income for the rest of one's life was gone. So for the next few minutes, what I want to share with you are 3 black swan events. Events that at least 2 of the 3 are going to affect your life. And they can be catastrophic personally. They don't have to be catastrophic financially. Now, the first of these 3 events that I would like to talk about is the crash that's coming. Earlier in this meeting, we heard Harry Dent, a well-known economic forecaster, Harvard graduate, best-selling author, TV personality, and he believes that the black swan event that's coming is going to be an incredible crash, and he believes it's coming sooner than later. Now, whether he's right or wrong, my question to you is, if this should happen and when it should happen, will you be ready? Where will you be? Where will your broker be? Will you convince yourself that you should hold on and not sell? These are important questions. What I find is that most individuals that I work with don't understand the difference between the 3 options that we have when choosing where we place our money. Everybody understands that we can have risk instruments in the market, or we can earn next to nothing in bank savings. But what I find is that few understand that there has been a hybrid of those 2. Now, let me give you a little bit of history. Let's go back about 40 years. We had unprecedented growth from 1980 to 2000, 2007, depending on how you look at that. What caused that? Literally 40 years ago, less than 10% of the adult population were invested in the market. Today, it's over 50%. Well, in part, the reason that changed was because of the Revenue Act of 1978 and the advent of 401ks. Within just a few years, 5 or 6 years, most major employers were providing 401ks for their employees, understanding the power of that. This flooded the market with new investors. Now you combine this with the post-war baby boomers like myself, who were reaching their peak income years, and you had all of the scenario for a lot of money going into market, making for this unprecedented growth. But when 1987 happened and we had this crash, people lost their retirement savings. Well, the insurance industry is a pretty smart industry, and it saw that it had a chance to develop a product that would protect the baby boomers in the future while allowing them to have the growth of the market. So they combined the 2 elements of the risk instruments that have the opportunity to grow when the market does well, but the guaranteed instruments where principal and a floor interest guarantee would protect their monies when the market tumbled. Now, if I go back a couple of years, I was asked to testify in a trial as an expert witness. It was a federal hearing. and it was in reference to these instruments. Now, what was interesting to me was this happened in the preparation for this trial. One of the attorneys asked me, he said, David, if these instruments are so good, why doesn't everybody have one? Well, you know what? I couldn't think of the answer to that. And in fact, I kind of thought, well, I pretty much like Rocky Road Haagen-Dazs ice cream. It's always in my freezer, but yet I bet not everybody has Haagen-Dazs Rocky Road ice cream in their freezer. Now, a few days after that particular conversation, I had one of my best clients come in to see me. And he had had these instruments for years. And Jim says to me, you know, looking at how we've done on this, let me ask you, why doesn't everybody have these? And so I thought about that, and I said to Jim, I said, you know, this is so different from what was said to me just a few days ago, if these are so good. And Jim says to me, these are so good, why doesn't everybody have one? And the answer is, I don't know. So I'm going to ask you, if you're here in the audience, or if you're watching this on video and you're 50 and older, let me know, why don't you have one? And also let me know why you don't have Rocky Road ice cream in your freezer. So let's talk about the second black swan event. And this one wears a lot of different hats, and it will affect every one of us here. My mother, coincidentally, October 19th, 1987, died with Alzheimer's. Now that wasn't a black swan event because we knew that was coming. But the black swan event was many years earlier when she was diagnosed. One of my best clients, Helen, she had retired as a school teacher, a voracious reader, often would work in her garden, began to lose her balance. Days later, went in for an exam, diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's, and a year later she was gone. These kinds of events are black swan events if we're not ready from an asset basis. And by the way, one of the things that we like to do in planning, if there's one strategy or one particular instrument that can solve a lot of different problems, that's a good thing for you. And one of those instruments is magical. J.C. Penney said if he hadn't had $3 million of this asset during the Depression, he wouldn't have survived the Depression, and J.C. Penney wouldn't be here today as a company. $201 million of this asset was just purchased in the last few months, considered the highest ever. What is this asset? It's magical, and yet I find that people of modest means don't have it. People of wealth always have it, and it's life insurance. If I can paraphrase the words of Will Rogers, who said, there's two times to never risk your money, when you can't afford to and when you can. Well, I would say there's two times that you should own life insurance, when you don't need it and when you do. And coincidentally, you can only buy it when you don't need it. Today's modern design, properly owned life insurance instrument is different than your father's. Today, the death benefit can be advanced to use for a multitude of reasons, and you should investigate it if you haven't. The last black swan event I want to share with you is the possibility of running out of income. And I want to give you three ideas. Those three ideas are, number one, postpone taking lifetime income until your age is an asset. Oftentimes, your pension should be saved rather than exchanged for income. Secondly, postpone Social Security as long as you can, preferably to age 70. And if you're a husband and wife, use what we call the apply and suspend strategy. With this strategy, you can literally maximize your Social Security by one of you taking the spousal benefit at 66, while both of you wait to take your own benefits to 70. Now, these are three black swan events that you can prepare for, but yet many won't. I believe that everyone deserves a safe and prosperous retirement. I believe that everyone should be able to save assets for their next generation or their favorite charities. However, most people will put this off. The number one reason why people don't achieve these goals is that they have procrastinated. I would like to end with one quick story. A fellow is sitting on the railroad track. Another person comes by and say, you need to get up off the railroad track. He says, I'm okay, I'm comfortable. Later, he hears the rumbling of the track. Another person comes by and says, you need to get off the railroad track. He says, I'm comfortable. Well, his next conversation is in front of St. Peter. And St. Peter says, why didn't you get off the railroad track? And the person says, I was comfortable. I didn't want to get off the railroad track. Now, many times we can procrastinate. Cutting the grass until tomorrow, that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to the protection for you and your family, having the income that you need to last your lifetime, you can't procrastinate. So I would suggest take heed, do the planning you need to do, and live a safe and prosperous retirement.